that for Amiji. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this GovTech panel that we are incredibly delighted to host. So we have a distinguished set of panelists. Care for some water? So Dr. Jayathilak, who is Additional Chief Secretary of Government of Kerala. And Kerala is among the most educated states in the country. And I asked him when I met him that what is your subject of PhD, being an administrator. He said no, he's a medical practitioner. And was a medical practitioner. And it is just a reflection of, the kind of people who are associating with technology and government in India. Then we have with us Gurneet. She is an IAS officer and from the 2006 cadre. And it is a great responsibility when people take on responsibility in India to be part of administrative services. And now she is at the center of driving the digital public infrastructure in India. She's a part of the team, a joint secretary in that area. And then we have got KK, who's Chief Product Officer at HCLSoftware. And he is a tech and a thought leader in technology. He was named as the top 50 CTOs, the Chief Technology Officers by Wall Street Journal, because of his depth of awareness and curiosity about the landscape of technology. And then we have Mr. Amit Singh, who is Special Secretary to the Honorable Chief Minister of the state of Uttar Pradesh. He will be joining us soon. He has joined us in... Yeah. He's secretary now. Oh, he's secretary now, so okay. So that's great, right? So we'll congratulate him when he's here. Did it happen recently? Some long back? Okay. So he's going to be there. And so we are honored to have you on this GovTech panel. These days, technology and governance are getting deeply interlaced. And, I was talking to Dr. Jayathilak briefly about how does technology really help. And he talked about trust. So why don't we start, Dr. Jayathilak, in you introducing us to this concept of the trust creation between the government and the citizens, and the opportunity, therefore, that trust creation delivers.
Greetings from Kerala, which our tourism department calls God's own country. And thank you, HCL, for this opportunity. So right now, when we have to book a taxi or whether we want groceries within 10 minutes, we have to perforce use a digital platform. In such a scenario, it is inevitable that governments have to go the whole hog in doing everything it can to interact with the citizens using digital platforms. And for that to be effective, there has to be trust between the government and the citizens. How can the citizens trust the government? How can the governments trust the citizens? Trust is a two-way street, as we know. So the reason why Kerala could succeed in this is because it leveraged itself on its existing achievements. You cannot airdrop or parachute a digital platform and expect that just because it was digitized, things will normally follow the process that we anticipate. Kerala's investment in health and education led it to being ranked number one in the Sustainable Development Goals. We have always been number one in the Human Development Indices. So this focus on having a very high literate population enabled the government to leverage that very easily and very seamlessly move into digitization and bring in participation. So I would say that the three corners of trust would be: one, participation, where the citizen feels that the governance is participatory. Secondly, bring in transparency, for which digitization is the easiest way to bring in transparency. And these two together can make the government accountable to the citizen. So if you remember
and the citizens accountable to the government.
Vice versa. I said it's a two-way street. So after the 73rd and 74th Amendment to the Constitution, Kerala was the first state to devolve its funds, functions and functionaries to the panchayats. 1/3 of our budget went straight to the panchayats. And the plan formulation was based on Gram Sabhas, where each citizen participated and ensured that the priorities laid down by the citizens were incorporated into the plan process. Right now it is digital. If we bring about any new policy, we are mandated to publish the policy document on our websites, wait for 30 days, get public feedback, use the feedback to modulate the policy accordingly, and also state what are the changes we made based on the policy feedback we got and the reasons why we did so. So this could not have been possible had not been the non-digital process earlier of seeking opinions and incorporating those suggestions into our policy frameworks.
Very interesting. If we, just to provide a little context, when we look at a country like India and a state, the population is large, and the organization of the state is what Dr. Jayathilak was explaining in terms of the state to reaching a citizen. There are several steps involved, and how does one communicate the whole strategy or the policy of the government to be known to everybody. I switch over to Gurneet ji. Gurneet ji, thank you for joining us in this podium. You step in wherever you go, you are kind of a focus of attention, because what India has been able to achieve in the digital public infrastructure. It is a very proud moment for DPIIT, because now it has become a benchmark which several governments across the world are beginning to see, that the Aadhaar system, the payment system that has been incorporated, the ventures like ONDC, etc. So perhaps you may like to brief our audience about some of these initiatives, and also the vision of how is DPI and the economic development of a nation are closely interlinked with each other, and how is it actually supporting different, why is it a benchmark for other governments to adopt? Where all it's adopting.
Thank you for this lovely opportunity for an interaction. We always own up companies which have originated in India and which have made a mark globally in terms of quality in products and service. So yes, great to be associated with HCL and great to be here this afternoon. Regarding your question, I break it down into two. First one being what the Indian government is envisioning and what we have been doing so far and where we want to take it, right? And the second being how do we leverage what we have done and sort of expand it at a global scale and even at an Indian scale and engage with citizenship. So the first part is very simply, you already pointed out, we have nearly 1.3 billion Aadhaar card holders presently in the country. So just the scale was at a point of time in 2011 when the drive began to enroll citizens and give them a unique identity number. It was a challenge. And I recall we were all in the field, and when we were called for sensitization workshops and orientations, we could not really envision the magnitude of it all and what it would entail for the future. But right now, what you see is Aadhaar is basically becoming a proxy for every transaction that you're doing online, for every service that you are able to avail, and even for every benefit that you can derive out of the governance systems. Along with that, not just Aadhaar, you also have a huge chunk of people who are now financially connected. So it is not just about giving a number, it's also about connecting it with existing technologies and technologies which have subsequently developed. So the idea of digital public infrastructure, when Jan Dhan came in at that time in 2012-2015 period, it had not been envisaged at that point of time. But over time, considering that we were building on certain policy, there was a possibility of having policy linkages. So that is important, and their leadership plays a very important role. We are sitting in Europe, and Europe has been the heart of global thought when it comes to the growth in philosophy. So Europe basically provided philosophy and philosophical thought to the world. And I go back to the times of Hobbes. So when he spoke about the idea of a social contract between a state and a citizen. Of course, the Hobbesian thought of social contract was very different from what we are seeing now, because that was more of a state-driven development. Right now, the kind of digital social contract that we are establishing is the reverse. It's more a citizen-centric and a citizen-driven initiative. And the terms are also being defined by citizens. Why do I say that? Sir spoke very eloquently about the process of digitization and how it is transforming governance systems, it is transforming policy making itself. One is you have access to information, you have access to data, and you have the ability to analyze it well and use it for the future. But also in terms of the comfort that a citizen has begun to feel with that digital interface. And why is that coming in? The focus and the thrust on digitization, why does India look at it? Because it brings in accountability in the mind of the citizen. It is not something that has been driven down from above, but wherever a citizen finds that, there is less human interface, they feel more comfortable interacting with it because they feel that technology to that extent is neutral, and they will be treated neutrally when it comes to their interface with the system. Of course, this comes with a disclaimer, and I would say that, we are all students of technology and policy, and I again, sort of go back to Langdon when he said that, does technology have politics? It does. When we started out, probably we did not realize it. Probably now we are realizing it. And so which is why the need to move into a future which is more trust-based and which is also more cognizant of the fact that when you are reaching out, you are also looking at issues of privacy, you're also looking at issues of security, you're also looking at issues of human relationships. So having said that, yes, policy is driving a lot that is right now in the government, and it's not just limited to people who can read and write. My recent experiences in the field have been so very wonderful. I have met women who are class 9th pass. They have just basically done their matriculation, perhaps not even that. They are being employed as technology drivers in villages in terms of being banking correspondents. What do? They carry a digital machine. They go from house to house. They're helping other women who are probably, not that socially well-off or socially privileged to move out of their households to access banking, sitting in their homes, to access their accounts. So what it is doing is, it is giving a sense of agency. So technology can be leveraged as a medium for creating agency and fostering choice among the public. So that is what we are looking at, and that is how government is looking at the idea of a digital India, of inclusive India, of digitally transforming India. So these would be just my opening thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Gurneet. KK, you're a technology player, right? And let me ask you a question which I don't know whether you're fully willing to answer, but let me go ahead and ask you. See, there is a guy called Ray Wong, okay? And he said that there is going to be margin compression in tech, right? Particularly driven by usage of technology in government.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dr. Jayathilak, a very interesting phenomena is occurring that when a country like India also becomes a producer and consumer of technology, the frugality and the affordability of Indian organizations, particularly the government, forces one to get the maximum out of technology, create highest amount of value. And you have experienced yourself in certain programs in India, how it actually can deliver solutions at planet scale, particularly in the context of India. I mean, you're not talking about, you know, when you talk about the state of Uttar Pradesh, it's 250 million people. That's like the 5th most populous country in the world, right? So at planet scale, you have an opportunity to bring down the total cost of ownership of software. So what is your thought on that? I mean, what role can technology companies like HCL in India play in terms of driving this structure?
So Rajiv, let's Singh, and we just have Amit come in, so you take your time. Get it. No worries, sir. Welcome.
Amit, do you need a mic? Do you want a mic up, or do you?
Yeah,
Want...
he'll have to. Yep.
Do you have another one?
Yep. So to your question, Rajiv. So I use this word prosumer, correct? Producer and consumer. And historically, when you talked India out into the world, people always saw India as a technology services destination. So if you go back to 90s, the question used to be is who India? Then it became what India? Then why? And then it became, why not? If you're not India, something fundamentally wrong. So boards, the strategy has been, if you're not doing technology services, outsourcing, whether it was IT, engineering, or BPO, there's fundamentally something wrong with that company. The company which was on the other side were suddenly started being questioned. If you really start to see what's the other side, which is the other India story, which is, to Rajiv's point, 2015-16, our founder, Chair Emeritus, Mr. Nader, actually, he asked a very fundamental question. We are building stuff for others, why can't we build for ourselves? And that's the birth of HCLSoftware, which effectively became the largest enterprise software product company headquartered out of India. And that dream, which really started, Rajiv, is on 2-3 aspects, correct? Can software be produced at planet scale, which means you build software and you acquire technology which is planet scale, which can work in, like our customer data platform has one customer running 600 million profiles. We've got a bank which is sending 22 crore messages a day on our delivery engine. 22 crores is 220 million messages, by the way, a day. These are like you would send that much SMS in a country for the entire citizen population, correct? In a day. So these fundamentally started to answer questions and saying, hey, where do you build these products? And then how can you make in India, but for the world? See, it's always historically been make in India for India was one of the big pushes. So that's one. The second question you asked was how the economics or the unit economics. See, India teaches you one thing, right? In India, the unit economics are absolutely crazy. The expectations of the buyer, they want the best thing in the world, but at the cheapest ever price with things, it's just the inherent. So it made you build and engineer products at, or even take products which were intellectual property, which we acquired from other parts of the world, and make them work at India price. So one was India scale, the second was at India price. The third thing which is fundamentally shifting, Rajiv, is this whole, I think, Gurneet ma'am talked about this whole globalization, correct? Global local, correct? World is becoming, on one hand we say world is one family, but then there is a significant amount of fracturization happening across the planet. So how do you make sure technology, access to technology becomes more sovereign, more openly accessible, not anything, you brought a word, politics and technology. That could be a third thing. And India is showing the way that if you build more and more intellectual property, and some of the conversations we are having in Africa and Middle East and LATAM, their willingness to engage on technology stack with us is something that's interesting. So I would say answer is in 3 different points, Rajiv.
Yeah, thank you, KK. Amit, welcome.
Thank you so much.
To
My
this
apologies.
session.
There was some miscommunication.
We understand that, Davos is, but it's beautifully sunny weather today.
Surprisingly sunny and very pleasant.
Yeah. Amit, you represent the state of Uttar Pradesh, which hit a world record for having 3.5 crores, which is 35 million people in one location.
Yeah.
Just last week.
Last week, yeah.
35 million people.
Just to take a nice bath and get blessed.
It is a state on the move, and the progressive position that the state is taking on technology. So why don't I throw an open question to you to talk to us about the state itself a little bit, the questions that you're trying to answer, a little bit of picture on its agricultural base and its the society there and how technology is coming in. And Dr. Jayathilak, I would ask you the same question because, but
Okay.
And then I will also, but maybe for the next round, we'll talk about artificial intelligence. Otherwise, we'll be penalized for not discussing
the buzzword of
AI in this session. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure to come to HCL. And in this forum, it's a company which we claim is from our state. It grew from our state. So it makes a little
It is
proud.
from your state.
So thank you so much. So even as we sit together today here, we are a state of 250 million people, which is aspiring to grow at a fast rate, and the speed at which we want to deliver and to the numbers which we want to deliver, it is not possible except by a very quantum embracement of technology in manifold areas. So we spoke about an event which is going on, Mahakumbh 2025. So it's spread over 46 days, and we expect about 600 million people to come to this place. On a single day, 35 million people took bath on that holy day. So it just gives you a idea of how many people we are handling there. And but for technology, the times in which we live, it's but for a very efficient use of it in both security, safety, and the way we are channelizing it, it wouldn't have been possible. And we are using it in this very event specifically for security purpose. You know how it takes place. You just spoke about agriculture. So we are home to about 24 million farmers. We have small holdings, And the only way we can as a state grow is by really knowing how the productivity of the state is across various regions and what interventions are needed to ensure that we are able to provide ensure a good quality of growth to these farmers. And this agriculture stack which we have been able to build, wherein we have database of how the agriculture produced in every particular holding has been there. How has it changed over the period of time? The water consumption needed, the pests infection, the overall picture of it, it is only technology that has enabled the state to really get a bird's eye view of the whole thing and get seized of the problems and give suitable interventions so that the farmers benefit out of it. I'll also, in this bigger room, or probably half of the room, the state is able to monitor each and every single thing which is happening with the Chief Minister's dashboard, wherein all the projects, they are lively monitored on a live basis. Every single complaint which is made for every grievance redressal, we can go down to every single person and see what response has been done to that grievance, whether it's genuine or it's just a cover-up. The land is a big issue because we are an agrarian state. So the land disputes, how are they being resolved? The titles, are they being given timely or not? So the state has actually embraced digitization in a very, very significant manner. And it has only on this account that we've been able to deliver a lot of things to our people. So just, I won't take much time. Our excise revenues in the last 6 to 7 years have grown by 4 times. From about 12,000 crores, we are now crossing 50,000 crores. And it's only because a very intelligent use of tracking and mechanisms that we have been able to achieve this quantum jump in our revenues. I spoke about a particular thing. In addition, we embarked upon this journey of industrialization and embracing business in a big way. And over 400 services are provided across the counter with no manual interventions. And we have been ranked ease of doing business. We being a leader state in the last 3 rankings which have come up. Before that, we had jumped to number 2. And then DPIIT removed those rankings and raised us achiever states. So we did achieve it well, embraced it, and ensured that people who want to come to our state have the state-of-the-art technologies helping them navigate through the state. And the issues which really trouble people, which are roadblocks, are really removed, and we are able to present to everyone who comes to our state a very smooth, seamless experience using technology so that they can grow, we can grow, and together the state can grow and its people can have a better quality of life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit ji. So, coming to you, Jayathilak ji, I mean, if I was to ask you, what are the 3 top priorities you have in terms of citizen engagement? And what would you expect from KK to deliver those to you?
Before that, I'd like to just respond to what Amit said just now, and when you said about 35 million people taking a dip simultaneously. I was thinking to myself, that is the entire population of my state. And I was imagining the entire population taking a dip simultaneously yesterday. So UP and Kerala are polar opposites in terms of the population and the area. And it is easy for a smaller state to achieve 100% in something. So we were the first to have 100% literacy, the first to lower to reach a total fertility rate of below 2. So a small state had advantages. And any aspect of digitization, it is easier for a smaller state. In terms of the priority that you mentioned, ease of doing business, if I may correct you, Kerala is right now number 1.
Oh. You're number 2. So we are privileged to have number 1 and 2
ranking, and we believe that if a business has to feel there is ease of doing business there, it is not for the business alone. Unless the entire ecosystem of the government reaching out to its citizens is smooth, a business alone cannot do well. Because the main components of ease of doing business is how the regulatory agencies interact with the businesses. And in India, the most important agencies would be the Department of Revenue, that's the land revenue, and the local bodies, the panchayats. So our highest priority has been that the citizen engagement with land revenue, that is a village officer or a patwari, and with the panchayats becomes very, very smooth. So when we digitized our land records and said that you don't have to go to the village office or to the panchayat to either pay your tax or to get your certificates, it can be done online, and this was done 10 years back. The mobile penetration or the internet penetration had not reached 100% at that time. So citizen service centers were set up in each panchayat so that those who do not have access to a computer could go there, and that center was the intermediary between the citizen and the government office. So they were trained, they just asked the citizen what is it that you need, and they smoothened the entire process. Right now, that is falling into disuse because everybody is doing it from home.
Okay.
It has reached that level. Our internet penetration is the best in India. In terms of panchayats too, we have seen the same story repeating itself. So, as you rightly asked, our highest priority is that our aim is they do not have to visit a government office for getting a certificate, for making a payment. No, everything can be done online from home. It's easy to talk about it, but we have been able to do it. The hitch that we faced is if you are to buy property and then transfer it, then it involves other departments too. So each department has to talk to each other, the softwares have to talk to each other, and getting government departments to talk to each other itself is very, very difficult. Getting their softwares also to talk to each other is something where we would need your brains to come and help us to get. Your phrase is API, but then for us, API is easier said than done. So how do we get the multiple softwares of various departments, which are all working in silos? Unless they talk to each other, we cannot have a whole of the government approach to solving these problems. So that is a challenge.
Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for highlighting that how complex technology actually does. I mean, it almost results in stepping onto your own shoes, you know. A common business-oriented language, COBOL, was supposed to be a uniform language long ago written, but more money has been made, Dr. Jayathilak, in transforming from one version of COBOL to the other. So it is, yeah, you know, it's like technology, right? So Gurneet, there is a big Make in India initiative. And KK talked about, you know, consumer producer in India, and then this value that is coming. How do you keep the multinationals from being equally excited about the India opportunity, you know, and do that? Because, or is it that their concepts are not valid for India?
No, I would not say
Okay.
that. No, basically, when we talk about government initiatives, I would just want to, you know, first say that every technology has a life cycle. And I mean, the people sitting here are much more aware of those life cycles. We are just still learning and researching and being students all the time. So it starts with research, moves to innovation, and then it moves to commercialization. So, I mean, broadly, these are the three stages in which technologies ideally move, and that is how the cycle of technology moves. So, when we look at the kind of initiatives that Government of India is taking at present, you will find that Government of India is present at all the three stages. So, starting with the idea of research, you have not only research happening within institutions of India, you have a lot of collaboration happening with foreign participants and foreign partners also. Sir spoke about softwares not talking to each other, right? Departments not talking to each other. But I think one of the very big advantages that India has, and which probably Europe faced when they were trying to scale up and talk to each other regarding their researches, that the language was not common. But in India, we have a huge advantage because our youngsters, our youth, our researchers are trained to speak the language of the world. So communication becomes that much easy, and your communication of research gets eased in the process. Starting from that, so you have a number of initiatives, you have a number of research programs, you have a number of research fellowships. Whichever country independently we are going into talks, we are doing agreements with, technology transfer starts from the idea of collaborating in research. So that is one aspect that Government of India is going big in pushing forward. Coming to the next stage about innovation. Now, how do you translate that research from being a purely academic exercise into becoming something that can actually start touching the life of citizens? So there you have the idea of startups. There you also have the idea of Make in India. So you're propelling people who have ideas to start translating them into usable products. So which is why Government of India is pushing so much. I mean, we have been flagging this across, but Startup India right now, we have about 1.3 billion people who are working towards it. You have 600 districts across the country where you are having startups. Startups are not just limited to metros. We can say startups in Bangalore and startups are in Bombay, or startups are in Delhi or Chennai. No. Startups are actually coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities. You're finding talent coming out from the smallest of places. And why are they coming out? Because they're getting an opportunity. So we have Startup Fund, wherein we have a seed fund of almost 14,000 CR, which is roughly about 140 million. And what that is doing is, that is giving a platform for youngsters, for people with innovative ideas to start and showing us proof of concept, which is something that previously was being demanded when it was, being looked at for the purpose of giving financing. Then moving on to the next stage. So where you need to move into commercialization. So you have a lot of support coming, not just for startups. We have about 130 unicorns coming out of India alone. For every 10 startups across the world, one happens to be from India. So it's not a small number that we are talking about, and it's not because our numbers are big. It's because the minds that are working are bigger. Even for that matter, if you look at the entire tech industry, which is situated in other countries, the brains are largely coming out of the Indian institutions, the Indian IITs and the Indian IIMs. So it is not something that we are not proud of. We are extremely proud of the fact that we are sending brains to the world who are actually thinking ahead and then who are coming back to us. But now the thrust is that we should be doing it in India and then sending it out to the world also. So it's Make in India, but for the world. It is not just for consuming within our country. So at all three stages, government has been pitching in, and pitching in largely in terms of incentivization, in terms of providing support, in terms of basically being there for doing hand-holding. So it is an opportunity that I would invite everybody to seriously think over and make most of.
Thank you, Gurneet. I'll come to Amit ji and then take it to you. So there is, if you look at the spectrum of the population in Uttar Pradesh, there is a big diversity. The state has an ambition of a $1 trillion economy. Is there a digital divide in the state because of that? And what is the state government doing to bridge this digital divide so that the opportunities that IT presents, they are equally available to everybody?
Okay, so what ma'am just spoke about, one thing which has emerged from the last decade or so is that the ability and desire of an average Indian our state, every state. He is very adept at adopting technologies and using it. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that if you give him the required infrastructure, he uses the technology as good as anywhere, even one who's in a rural background. So, when you speak about digital divide, I'll say it's more so in terms of connectivity, speeds, that there are certain areas which, by their very nature, have a better connectivity. The speeds are better, the dropouts are less, and there are rural areas which have those connection issues where there are many times repeaters are put, the signals, the way you want them are not exactly there. But otherwise, I do not believe that today we, as a state, we have pockets or areas where the digital literacy is lacking. The desire is lacking, the skills are there. It's only probably the infrastructure which needs to upgrade and get at par with, say, the best in the country. The government has been working. It is on a twin principle of putting its own foot forward and incentivizing the private industry by pitching in to those areas which are lesser served. And I'm sure that we have come a long way. And UP as a state, the way we have been able to skill our people, skill our populace in general, that we are able to deliver so many services to common person, what Sir spoke about. The desire to ensure that a person does not have to go to a physical counter for any service out of the government setup. It's a certificate he wants, it's a draft he wants, everything is on the net, on the computer. So that is only possible with more and more deepening of technology in our lives. And I think as a state we have done quite a decent job in this manner. And I'm sure that in times to come, very soon we'll have a state all through. It will be a very, very conversant and at ease with technology.
Awesome. KK, let me ask you this, right? The government wants to use technology in very interesting ways, right? And it has been using technology innovatively. Yep. But if we were to look at 2 or 3 emerging tech areas that the governments can actually use to literally revolutionize the way in which, as Jayathilak ji said, Dr. Jayathilak said, about building trust, citizen engagement, digital public infrastructure, reaching out to people, the policy. What are the things that the government should be watching out to, because looking for in tech areas that can help them achieve these objectives clearly?
So I want to go back and, as Gurneet talked about, taking a quote back from the great, when the French Revolution happened, it said, government is of the people, by the people, for the people. I think a lot of the digital India is a great example, is for the people. It's a perfect example of manifesting the third statement. How do you just get anyone across the country access to? Now, when you go and look at that, there are 2 ways to look at this, Rajiv. There's a lot of, I would say, as you talked about research, innovation, and commercialization, a lot of technologies which exist, which can advance a lot of this adoption. There's a lot of work happening on AI, a lot of work happening around computer vision, there's a lot of work happening around machine learning, and you could say Gen AI, agentic, a lot of pieces which is in there. There's a lot of work happening on space tech. Understanding land is a very interesting statement. Land can be seen topographically, and GIS is a very, very interesting thing, because climate and so many, there are things which we see from up to down, but when you see it from top to down, the things look very different. Correct? The world can be. But I would distill them into 3 big places. Right? One, if it is government is for the people, the number one thing which it should move towards is the whole idea of what we call the X, the experience. How can G2C, government to citizen, the digital experience. People say it's like Uber type experience, or they should now start to talk about like the quality of stuff which Dichiyatra is giving you, or FTI, or things. There is some fair amount of, so what government doesn't have is like a super app architecture where you can do it in an effective way called total experience, where like state of Kerala will have one super app or UP, and then it could have central government published applications, and then there could be local applications. They could based on a customer data platform, you can have a citizen data platform, and you can say, hey, I want to subscribe to these 5 things as a citizen, and I want to use this. So that's how do I improve the experience? So think about total experience, citizen experience, consumption experience, multi-channel. That's one. The second thing, government is very interesting. Data. Government has a unique ability that it has the largest amount of data points than any other entity in the country, whether at a state, local, or at central. So the data technology, the ability for data monetization, data catalogs, data products. Why shouldn't you offer data products about insight? If you're doing agricultural collection data, those things could be consumed as data, not just apps or API. I agree, not everything can be put in an API. I'll address your question in the last at least. But yes, APIs have limitations. You can't pump a lot of data through APIs. The APIs have their own way. There are different ways to consume data when you're talking about this case of data. How do you organize data, visualize data, offer data to other entities, government, private, public, and even external entity, even research data. If you're doing research, what research is dual use, or maybe I want to use it for defense and not give it on some is commercial, things like that. The third, I think, in government, one of the things is about business operations, which comes back to your point, is when you operate complex environments, there's a very interesting Conway's law which came in, which says if you want to understand how an organization is structured, please look at their systems. The systems were always a mirror of how their org structures were. So as government is breaking out this whole siloed approach, but unifying a lot of things, just significant amount of, you just roll back the clock 20, 30, even 10, 15 years back in India, the operating structure is completely morphed, it's inverted. I would say operations thinks around how are you able to orchestrate services? How are you able to operate in bringing a lot of cyber resiliency? Because one of the biggest risks, which I think in a digital world, is in the physical world, paper, this thing, you had fair amount of checks and balances, doer, checker. In digital, because of the straight-through processing, cyber risk compliance becomes an extremely important thing for the government. How are you securing against now state actors? It's very interesting. So I think business operations efficiency, cyber, and becoming own and adopting sovereignty, cloud, a lot of other pieces. I would say I would put this into 3 buckets, Rajiv, in terms of how government could really apply technology. The building blocks can be many, but I think the end goal should be looked at around these 3 pieces.
Good. Sophia, so far we're doing good? Good. So we've got about 5-6 minutes left, and we'll do some rapid fire maybe now. Right. So a quick impression on sovereignty and GovTech.
Well, I'll just begin by saying that sovereignty was defined as government of the people, by the people, for the people. Right now we have government of the people because everybody can vote. We have government by the people because everybody is represented at the legislature. But it is not government for all people. It's government for the people, but for not all people because of the digital divide. So we were very, very conscious in Kerala to remove the digital divide, and it started with school children. Every classroom in a government school in Kerala, every government school in Kerala has smart classrooms. Because of this program called IT at School, which began 20 years back, the children were made digitally literate, and they were told to teach digital literacy to their parents. So which is why Kerala became the first e-state of India by having 100% digital literacy. This can ensure that they have a completely full role in participatory governance, in being able to hold government to account, and ensure that the government as a sovereign takes care of cyber security and digital security.
Awesome. Sovereignty and government.
Yes. It's a very tough question to answer as a rapid fire question, actually, because, when one enters into research, you're taught about ethics, and particularly when you are doing empirical research, you're basically taught how to frame questions so that they don't elicit responses that you want should be elicited. So, sovereign data, sovereign governance, these are questions I would say have to be not only thought of as a regulated interface between the government and the private developers or the innovators. It has to be in terms of looking at how we want our world to shape up eventually. Because like I said earlier, technology is not neutral. And particularly when Sir speaks about digital divide, Sir talks about access and affordability issues, and Alvin Toffler says that it is not illiteracy that we should be worried about in the future, it's probably the people who are getting left behind because technology is running too fast for them. So, given this backdrop, I think it is more about a responsibility that has to flow from B2B, G2B, and also G2C and B2C. It's complex, I understand that, but then it's a wicked world we are living in. And technology right now is, in terms of using, that phrase, basically taking quantum leaps. And I'm not just talking about the quantum technology part of things. So yes, it's a very difficult balance to achieve, I would say. Every government is taking baby steps towards it. We have also initiated a data protection bill. And there is a DP which has rules which have been recently published. And so yes, this issue remains paramount on the mind of every policymaker right now as to when we are moving so deep into technology and use of technology in providing citizen services, in engaging with businesses, in providing support to public. How do you ensure that that technology is inclusive and that technology is responsible? But then that is a continuing debate and a continuing deliberation.
Well, thank you. KK, quick impression.
So I would say if you go back, and I think a lot of credit should, if you look at the development of technology, especially in the United States, just majority of the tech development happened because of government intervention. People don't give credit to government as much in many parts of the world, but pretty much every big technology, including ballpoint pen, effectively, if you go back, was funded by a government research or some other part. I would say that in governments, many had every government department taken a venture capital equivalent stake in some of those, every company, they would have become the richest private equity in the world, correct? Fair enough.
Venture fund.
Or venture or growth PE or venture, they would have suddenly made so much money, basically. But I would say, as the technology evolution is happening, the only thing is that each country should start to look at, there is commercial technology, which you brought B2B, B2C, all this consumer aspects. There is critical national infrastructure, which is extremely critical when you have dependencies for sovereign to exist as sovereign. There should be critical national infrastructure, which could be basically physical infrastructure, energy infrastructure. I would say digital connectivity and digital public infrastructure should become part of critical national infrastructure, because the nation exists because of that piece, correct? Fundamentally, those pieces. So I would say that's where, and the third and the most important thing I would say is data, because data is going to define, because finally everything is about data, correct? And how do you, I think if the governments can really look at these three things and clearly say what is commercial, enterprise, global trade, things which we just had EFTA agreement being signed between this, it's continuing to happen, correct? The ways and means to trade and collaborate, but then their sovereignty should also make sure that the right for a nation to exist, and that means what is the minimal, and we're seeing so many examples of across the world in fracturism and what's happening. I would say that's something each governments have to think about: secure messaging, secure collaboration, customer data, citizen data, fundamental things which is required to run a country, and then how do you innovate around that? That's what I would really look at this.
Amit ji, I'll just provide a little context. And is it okay if we take 2-3 minutes more? We started 3 minutes late. So, because if we don't talk about AI, I think we'll all be fine, right? So, we just need a question on that. So, Amit ji, in the context of security and privacy of your individuals, sovereign and GovTech, what's your view?
So, do I put AI in it?
Yeah.
No, I will ask a
So-
AI question just after this.
Okay, I'll leave that. No, actually, what everyone has spoken about, it's although things are merging and still there are certain standard things, silos in which some things has to exist. Like what, when you talk of sovereign nations, there's certain amount of IT and digital world wherein you wanted absolute stability about it. The grids, the electricity grids are running. You want to be them very, very secure. At the same time, you want actually a lot of interaction, a lot of merging, a lot of evolution in the way governments access to the citizens, the way citizens are able to access the services, the way business interact with each other and to citizens. So technology is the way life is going to move, whether we embrace it or not, we'll be forced to embrace it. The challenge for the sovereign will be to ensure that it's able to protect its own interest as an entity as a whole and the interests of its citizens as individuals, which is primarily in the sense of their data sanctity, and ensure that they are well taken care of. And in addition, to make them digitally aware, it's not just usage of technology which is important, but also the certain precautions which go with it. I mean, the number of cyber scams which have taken place, it just shows that being digital literate is one thing, but really to know which is the correct path to truth is also important. It's the educated ones who have fallen in that, not the illiterate people or the illiterate ones. So I think it's a challenge for all of us, for the
Yeah,
sovereign, for off.
it is a challenge indeed, because as we look at most technology companies that are networked very widely are valued more, right? Whereas sovereign, keeping it in control, is more valuable to governments, right? When you look at certain technology, restrictions on exports out of United States or certain technology is an element to drive towards security of a nation. So it's happening everywhere, and governments have a great responsibility. And KK, you and HCLSoftware are deeply committed to it in building these solutions. So this is a question, the last question on AI. I deliberately did not want to get into AI because it consumes most conversations. But this is a stolen question from Press Trust of India. They asked me this question. So I'll ask it in the context of GovTech. Is AI good or bad for GovTech, government?
If I may take the liberty of lobbing it back to HCL, the immense potential of AI is known. Its use in other sectors is already documented. Its potential in government is still not understood or studied. We would like to partner with HCL to do the study in Kerala.
Most welcome. Dhruv Kohli is right here. Dhruv, partner with Dr. Jayathilak ji in Kerala to determine how can we apply AI responsibly in governments. What do you think, Gurneet?
Rajiv ji, you're asking a very fundamental question because ultimately AI is technology. So is technology good or bad? That would be, my question.
It is good. I mean, we've been talking about it, yeah.
So, see, AI, and this is for any technology, if leveraged properly, has huge potential. And any technology which is not used to the purpose that it has been designed for would give you unintended results. Even at times, after much deliberation, when technology gets deployed, it gives you unintended results. Which is what, and AI sometimes I feel is more of a, is a very easy whipping boy because we see it all around us and so we keep saying, no, it's not good, it's not good. But AI, if leveraged adequately and properly, can really help us in designing policy, it can help us in implementing policy. it can help us in thinking much ahead and in much less time. So,
Thank you. Amitji, what's your view? You were thinking about it.
No, I just said there's good and bad. That question has, it's ceased
Past.
to exist now.
It
It's
is
only
there with
whether
us.
we embrace it wisely or we embrace it in ignorance. That is the only. So I guess if we embrace it wisely, we'll use it to much better use rather than embracing it ignorantly.
Is there a use case that you figured out for AI in Uttar
Oh
Pradesh?
yes, very much, very much. I mean, it's
What about you?
We're still looking at
You're
various
exploring.
options. Yeah.
Yeah. We know about the AI initiative at the center. Yeah. KK?
So I would say first remove the A out of AI. I think it's nothing artificial. I think I would use the word augmented intelligence. You can say applied intelligence, but bring the human in the loop. See, go back. The original tagline which HCL started was is technology touching people's lives. Rajiv, if you end of the day, it's a human in the loop. AI should exist to serve and improve life quality of human lives better. AI should exist. Just like any dual use technology, you can always argue from the nth this thing after Oppenheimer discovered fission. He said that I have created death, but he also he was reflecting back to what was said in the Vedantas. Very interesting that technology is applied to the right, but he's found an immense source of energy. So I would say nuclear power applied in the right way, absolute can solve energy crises, correct? Sun is a perfect example, correct? One of the most dangerous objects in the planetary system because it's a fusion bomb. It is out there producing so much energy, but using it in the right. I would say, and that's where people can always say government regulates and blah, blah, all those things. Someone has to at least define the guardrails of saying what can be used in the right way for the larger good of the people. And there is commercial organizations always look at profit at the core. And hence somewhere there has to be some level of non-commercial. And that's where I think, so I would not take good or bad, right use, applied use, technology for commercial purpose, technology for human purpose, technology for larger social causes. And I think AI is, as Amit said, there is no way you can reverse it. Use it wisely is what I would conclude with.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. Dr. Jayathilak, Gurneet KK, Amitji, for this very enlightening discussion. Give it up for this wonderful panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.